Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back. This is Fierce Honest Hearts. I am Heidi Ferguson,
I am Fidishta Ramsey.
and we are excited to be back, excited to be here with you on this very chilly, rainy, kind of cloudy afternoon in December. So, yeah. So Fidishta and I wanted to just start off by sharing, for those who might not know, for those who might be new here, why we do this, why we keep coming back as often as we can to share with you. And for me, I would say the first thing is it's important for me to show up in an authentic way and for everyone here, but also for myself and for my bestie here, Fidishta. And given that, our history, we've been friends for a really long time now. I'm not even going to try to count the years, but a long time. And, our relationship is not perfect. We've had bumps in the road. We've had some challenges along the way. And our intention is to bring that here so that we are modeling for you, the viewer, how to do that, how to do relationships better, how to do friendships better, how to do your life better. Because I know that when I feel aligned with my friend here, Fidishta, I feel more aligned with myself and vice versa. Like if I'm aligned with myself, I'm also aligned with her. So I'm going to stop talking there and just let you kind of share a little bit in your own experience.
Oh, that was so perfectly said. And yes, this is our own practice as friends that we are revealing to others in hopes that it inspires you, in hopes that it gives you a blueprint to look towards if it calls to you, right? And then, yes, I think even today is a great day to name and share what we do to handle conflict together. Because as you and I have discussed, the higher the stakes, the more our natural sensitivities may come up. So I love this space for the fact that we get to do our friendship and we get to have this consistency together, plus giving people a lens in to what conscious friendship can look like, what it can feel like, and how it can be such emotional scaffolding for your life, for my life, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow. That's a that's a big bite to take, and like you said, the risk, it is a high risk relationship. And so I'm going to launch into my check-in, which is the last few weeks have been very challenging for me in many areas of my life. And I feel like I've been carrying a lot. I have been carrying a lot. And one of the challenges that I've had is there was, I would call it a misunderstanding. And I was like, how do I know the tools, like I have the tools to do this, but how do I do this? Like, how do I have the courage? Where do I find the courage? Where do I find the risk? Like, what is it within me that I need to bring it? And and what was fascinating to me was how once I got out of my own way and once I really slowed down and got quiet, is what I needed to come through for the information came through. And then I was able to communicate it to you. And I had no idea that I was in my own way. And I had no idea that, oh, this is what it is you need to communicate so that you can find the clear way, like just find a clear way to get through it. And so, because we've talked about the slowing down and my need to, slow down, because when I get ahead of myself, I not only leave my own mind, but I feel like I leave my own body, which is not a good thing. And it's important for me, for myself and my relationship for myself to stay grounded and steady And I know that is true in my relationships with everyone else, and you included. And so, yeah, and that can be really it is confronting. It's not, it can be, it is confronting, like to really, and I even used the metaphor with you when we were talking the other day. I said, maybe like I probably need a bigger mirror to look at myself, right? Because when I do this, I envision that I'm holding up like a hand mirror. I'm like, no, you need to see more of what's going on within you, because the awareness, like that's what I want more of. I want to have more depth, and I want to have more awareness. And the only way I can do that is to see myself in a clearer, more transparent way.
Wow. Yeah, I'm really hearing in all of that your care.
Mm,
That's what I'm receiving over here. It's like, oh, yes, we're going to hit hiccups. I'm likely going to hurt or frustrate or disappoint you somewhere. And then how do we work through that? Like, that's one piece. And then what's coming through as you share that is when any of us look in the mirror, we're showing care to the people around us, right? Because just I'm imagining the people who don't look in the mirror, how difficult it is to be in relationship with them. And what a gift from the heart, I'm going to say it is.
mm,
To look in the mirror, to get a bigger mirror, to even sometimes, as you did for me, like turn the mirror and let me see myself, how you see me in those moments, right? Like all of that's a really for us move,
mhm.
even though it feels shaky, right? My most empowered moments have been the shakiest feeling.
Mine too.
So just busting the myth that it's going to feel like, ah, right? Like it might feel like, this is terrifying. And just trusting that the shaky is like strength training, not that something's wrong. So yeah, thank you for bringing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks
Yeah.
like you got to say something.
I wanted to add to that because you talked about me holding a mirror for you and seeing
Mhm.
yourself. And again, getting quiet and going within and using this sacred pause. When I hear the information, that comes through that, okay, this is the next step. This is what is probably
Mhm.
really necessary in the moment. I'm like, oh yeah, because it is a win-win for both of us. Even though it's hard, even though
Mhm.
it feels a little crunchy and I'm like, oh my God, I'm cringing inside, right? Because trust me, I have a lot of those moments.
Yeah.
I know the end result will be a win-win. It undoubtedly is always a win-win.
Mhm.
And even if that's only a step in the win-win, it's a step towards. And
Yes.
and I want to say to those who are working on creating this in their life and wanting this in their life and wanting to have authentic conversations that might feel hard, you can do this. And this doesn't happen overnight.
No.
I mean, this has been years in the making, years in the creating, years in the trusting, years in the authenticity and risking and and it's a very conscious choice. So conscious friendship, conscious relationships is a 100% hell yes conscious choice. It has to be. It has to be, or else it's not going to work.
Yeah. And I love this framework, right? Of like, it takes training. That's my belief anyway. And it's relational fitness. So just like anything else that you want to get fit with or master, you know, you go out and play tennis day one, it's gonna be messy. You're gonna be chasing a lot of balls around the court, right?
You're not going to be ready to. You're not going to be ready to play Serena or Roger.
And hopefully you and your partner are laughing a little at yourselves,
Yeah.
right? But you play tennis every week for a year, see the growth,
Right.
right? So I like to think of it as relational fitness.
Yeah.
Because then our minds can understand that, hey, every time I do the hard thing, I'm gaining muscle strength. right? And so it's I'm going to call it counterintuitive for most people. Counterinstinctual might be a better term,
Mhm, mm,
uh,
mhm.
because it's having to be in discomfort, and it's having to be in discomfort while growing your capacity for discomfort. It's like a Russian doll sitch, right? So like,
Yes.
while finding your voice,
Mhm.
while naming your needs, while setting your boundaries, while listening for the other person's care instructions. Like, I don't get thinking you can wing this. I'm just going to put that out there. I know I sound judgy, but I don't get winging relationships. I've done it. I've definitely created some dumpster fires in my life by doing it that way. Um, I think we train for other things. Why wouldn't we take this one seriously? Because here's the thing, and I think you and I both got to see this, right? For all the knowledge, you had the tools. I heard you say, I knew the things, but now I'm being asked to embody the
Oh,
things I know.
yeah. That was so just coming from but yeah, yeah.
Right? That is a work in progress.
Yeah.
Because we're actually, I know for me, I'm fighting my nervous system. That's like, no, don't do any. What are you doing? Right? To say like, but this is the way forward, as you said.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'll dovetail that into my check-in, which is really two things. Noticing how I have equated loving with worrying. That's been really interesting to see.
Mm.
And I think it's sort of a learned behavior. It certainly happened in my family, and my grandfather was like that. And I think it's this place of if I show worry and concern, I'm showing love, right? But worried love feels really constricting to me now, right? It's coming from, are they okay? Are they safe? Is it this? Instead of just like love, just gonna love, right? So it's been interesting to see that structure within me that is a bit of an energy leak. It has a strategy, it has a payoff, right? But it has a cost. So I'm looking at in ways of energetic hygiene, let's say, how can I show love without adding this like underlying worry or anxiety to it? And it feels weird to say that out loud because I think often I am loving and nurturing and it's coming from a good place. But it's this little bit that's a little, it's like if you have a dial from 1 to 10, it's the when it goes to 12, and you're like, oh, wait,
Mhm, mhm.
what's happening here? So, not taking love off the shelf, but saying, why do I do that? Why do I get over responsible for people?
Mm.
Worry about them? Do I not think they're resilient and resourceful themselves? Do I think I've got to go over to their side of the street? So I'm already seeing where it could be liberating to just love.
Just simply love.
And not make it shady and squirrely and shit,
Right,
internally, which
right.
I imagine the internal tension and strain translates to something to other people, right?
Of course. Yeah.
And then as it relates to your feedback, right, in our previous convos offline, I think it takes a really good friend to choose to be unpopular in the moment and to share a reflection like this is how I experience you, right? Because that could go all kinds of ways.
Sure.
And I think of, my mentor, Jason, where he's like, well, if one person calls you an ass, you could probably blow it off. But if 5 people call you an ass, you might want to check it out.
Yeah.
Like, you might want to see. And I think I have had that feedback,
Mm.
one up, one down feedback.
Mhm, mhm.
And gone, okay, so there's something I do that's out of my awareness, super unconscious and not working. So how do I figure out what that is? And you know, people can, I think one option is people can go down a shame spiral. Certainly had those before. But this time I'm just like, how am I going to put my little problem solver hat on and see where this comes from? Because I don't want anyone I love to feel one down. So it's just what's sitting on my heart. And it's, it feels a little heavy, but it also feels caring. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm hearing it in that way.
Hmm.
Hearing it and I'm receiving it in a very caring way. And I want to add, to that a little bit. So I'll frame it this way, when I was doing my best and allowing a lot of grace for myself in the messiness of giving you some feedback. And this is like I said, I named it. I'm like, this is my stuff and I'm struggling with this, but it's important for you to hear this. So one of the things that I'm aware of is I'm okay if somebody brings whatever they need to bring to me for feedback, like that's okay with me. And it's also really important, and it's going to be reparative as we're moving through it.
Mm-hmm.
If the person says to me, like I just said to you, I know this is my stuff and I'm really struggling with this. And so in this moment, what I need is for you to be a little more sensitive or a little more attuned with me, or however you want to frame that. Mm-hmm. Because when our stuff is our stuff, sometimes we can't see it. Like it took me a couple of days to see and I'm like, oh my God, Heidi, this is your shit. What do you like? This is your stuff. And why is this affecting you in this way? Right. Mm-hmm. So when we can recognize it, that's kind of like kind of like the chorus comes and everything. And then we're like, okay, so this is my stuff. And I still am having some impact from it. And so how do I want to move forward? Mm-hmm. Right. So in this case, so that you can hear me, you can receive it in a way that is understood and kind and gentle and loving. Like we can deliver, believe it or not, human beings, we can deliver feedback that's hard and challenging in a really loving and kind way. So yeah. And when I heard you own it, I was like, okay, we're going to be fine. Like that for me was the turning point. I'm like, we're good. Mm-hmm. We're good. Yeah. Because I've been in situations where the person on the other side of the street is not willing to not only account for themselves or not even attune themselves in the moment, right? So there's no acknowledgement or anything. And I'm like, I don't know. It's not relational.
Yeah. And
the person who's struggling with wanting to give the feedback or has given the feedback and there's no acknowledgement, it's lose-lose. Completely lose-lose. There's no way, there's no coming back from that, because it's kind of just like hitting a brick wall. That's you're just, I'm like,
there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to
go. There's nowhere to go. And it is crazy making. Like it really is. And one might begin to question themselves, like, is it me? And I think I'm just going to stop there, because it was profound. It was healing. It was, it allowed us to connect in a deeper way. Like when we got through it, I was like, okay, because it was about 4 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks where we were coming up for air, and then, and I'm like, okay, so we're good. Like we're good.
Yeah. And I love that you even named that, because just to bust the myth that it all has to be done in one conversation.
Right.
sometimes our nervous system needs a break. Sometimes we need to set it down for a week. Sometimes it's 4 conversations till we comb through it all. That's okay, right? It's not a failure if you had a 30-minute convo and it didn't work, or
Right,
someone got activated and you had to time out.
right,
That's a step in the right direction still.
yeah,
And then, I want to talk about when we give each other feedback, that it can be done, as you said, with loving kindness, right? And with ownership of like, hey, I'm sensitive here. I know I'm sensitive here. I know my wounds. I know my triggers. This is triggering my trigger, right? And I'm hurt because I think there can be I don't know what to call it. It's like a myth that if it's my trigger, I've got to just deal with it by myself,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
it was created in my life. It was before this person ever existed. It's mine.
yeah,
But the reality is, let's say 90% of that's true. It's your history, it's your trigger, but it's coming up in relationship to someone else. So it is important for them to know, and to know your care instructions, and to know that for you, that's going to be a place that's tender,
mhm,
you know? Um, that's the piece I wanted to lift up is, first off, don't rob people of their growth by not giving them feedback.
right,
That's
right,
shitty,
yeah,
right? I know I'm holding feedback for one person right now, and I have not, like, I haven't been able to massage it, and I also haven't been able to see that person.
mm,
But there is a part of me that goes, I'm robbing this person of an opportunity to grow. So it's not about me.
right,
I mean, it is a little, but it's not entirely about me,
right,
right? Because perhaps they're showing up that way in 8 other places.
right,
And so it's impacting more than just our relationship.
yeah,
So gift people that opportunity to grow and give them
always,
that feedback. It's if it's constructive, constructive means still building, right? You're building up. And then the last piece that feels important, because this is kind of a paradigm shift for people, is the only win is both of you feeling seen and heard. I think when people get defensive and justify and have their explanations and even gaslight, they think they're winning at something. I don't know what they're trying to win at, because I take it back. I guess they're winning at proving themselves, but it's still, as you said, a lose lose. I think in their minds, they're thinking, I'm going to win even if this person loses, which, hate to tell you, is a lose lose
right,
if we're looking at the us.
right,
So I think it takes a paradigm shift in people's minds. If I go pro self here, and the person across from me doesn't feel met and seen and heard, did anyone win? I don't think so. What do you think?
yeah, thank you for that, yeah,
Mhm.
because I felt that, I mean, I felt that as we were going through it. I knew that the end result would be, and it was a matter of getting there,
Yeah.
right? And the other thing, I do want to talk a little bit about feedback. So feedback is one of those tricky things.
Mhm.
And one of my processes has been in the past is to, if I'm angry about something, I just kind of write it all out in an email. I send it to myself, and I make sure that, because it really isn't for anyone else. It's really not. Like that anger, I'm like, and it needs to be released. Like
Mhm.
if there are words that I need to feel like, oh my gosh, this person needs to whatever. Oh, and I just, and I write the email, because it's not about being nasty, because I really, at the end of the day, I don't want to be nasty. I
Mhm.
really don't, even though, and so it might take some time for my anger and then frustration and then disappointment. It's a phase. There are layers to this.
Mhm.
And it needs to come down the scale. Like we need to probably get it. Let me say, I want to get it to a 0. So that when I do come to the person, I can just say, okay, I was really hurt. And this is what happened. And I realized it. So whatever that process is, but And I would also say, if you're responding to an email that you feel just slighted by or whatever, wait 24 hours. Wait 24 hours or start a Word document and just put the response in the Word document, not meaning to send it, just you need to get it out. But because that will always be lose-lose. Just you don't want to respond. I mean, I get there are people in the world that might want to respond with anger, but it's never a good idea. It's never. And to repair that, I don't even want to look at that. I wouldn't even know where to begin to repair that.
Yeah. In terms of destructive anger.
In terms of, being destructive and saying nasty things. It doesn't serve anyone. And most of all, it does not serve you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you put that out there, let me speak for myself. If I were to put that out there, I would probably literally lose sleep, literally, for at least 5 days, because I would be shaming myself and guilting myself and, oh my gosh, Heidi, I can't believe whatever it is. So for those who struggle with feedback, I hear you, and it really is. It's something that I think we all struggle with, to be real, and do your best.
Mm-hmm.
Take your time with it. And like Fidesta said, if it's not done in one conversation, it's okay. Like, let yourself become resource, come back to yourself. Because when we're at a 10, I would say a 7 and above, it's probably not a good idea to even attempt to have a conversation.
We're not available.
We're not available.
Even if we think we are, because some of us, myself included, think I'm like super resourced at a 7 or 8. And I've stopped lying to myself, and thinking like, oh, I'm doing this because I can present as very thoughtful and litigious and resourced. But no, it's not happening.
Right.
So it's a great boundary to have with your loved ones. Like, time out. We can't do this. And something you said had me thinking about the trust factor. Because I think so much of a conflict is fear that it's not going to get better, or fear that the other person's not going to seek a win-win. Right. And even though you and I both trusted each other that we will figure this out, there were moments I got scared. Right. There were moments I got doubtful, or a little disappointed, or a little shaky with like, oh, this feels hard, even though like I know you and I know me. It was just interesting to see that doesn't necessarily go away, and it's traversable. Yeah. And I also want to come back to the place where people don't take ownership, because that, I almost feel like a guttural, like, ugh, when I think of that. I think of the times when I wasn't skilled enough to take ownership, and how that was such a dead end for the people across from me.
Yeah.
And then the times where someone else just denied, justified, whatever, and being like, God, I can't even talk to you. Like, right? That level. And just, I'm going to call it the heavy cost. Because if you're going to go so pro self to make someone else doubt their own feelings and their own experience, that doesn't feel good to me. So I just imagine, I feel tenderness in my heart, like, oh, I've done that, and I've had that done to me, and it's painful.
Yeah, me too. So I'm really grateful to have the awareness around that. And working really hard and very intentionally to not do it again, to never do it again. Although I probably will, but to have the awareness, I'm like, okay, I'm doing the best as I can as a human person.
Yeah. And I think, naming it as awkward as it is, like, hey, I kind of feel attacked right now and I feel the need to get defensive. Right? That's a good start.
Hmm.
Like, I'm noticing I want to get defensive here,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I think defensiveness is like our animal response to threat, but can we override it with like human spirit and
Yeah.
care?
Yeah.
Right? Flex that empathy muscle, especially when it's hardest.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm. Big exhale. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Felt deep, really rich and deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, so I've had an unbelievable amount of support from you recently, which has really meant a lot. And I guess what I want to share with our people is that, as humans, we hold a lot. We are challenged with a lot going on in our lives. And recently, there's been a lot of grief. And as most of you who are watching probably know, that Stephen Twitch Boss
Mhm.
took his life, I guess 2 days ago. And so I've been feeling a lot of heaviness with that. And also two friends of mine have been sharing, some passing in their own families. And so I've been feeling just a lot of the weightiness of loss. And you asked me a really great question when we were on our call last evening, which was, do you feel like you're grieving for other people? Wasn't that what it was, right?
Yeah, like
And
grieving, feeling their grief and
feeling
grieving.
their grief. And I, in the moment, I really couldn't identify, didn't know. And today I was thinking a little bit more about it, and I was like, actually, this is my grief. Like, even though I don't know my friend's mother, I know her from what he has shared with me about her. And I think she's 93, like she's lived a really long life. And there have been a lot of touch and go moments with her in the last 5 years or so. And so now she's transitioning. She's in that process at the very end where she's transitioning, and it still feels really tender and sad, and all of that. Let me just take a breath. And then a high school classmate of mine, her brother, who was a little bit younger, they had a very very tight, close relationship because they just had a lot of struggle in their life with parents and addictive issues and whatnot. So anyway, her brother, who's been sick for the last couple of years, I think he passed last week. And so just feeling into the losses and also, yes, other people's grief. So holding a lot, and then having some things going on in my own life. It's been a lot. And so what I hope for others, what I really do hope and pray for others, is that you can have a friend like I do, who reaches out and just says, I'm concerned, I care, I'm your person. Do you want to check in? That means the world. It's a game changer, because by the end of the call, we were laughing. Like I shared, I was in tears at the beginning, and then we kind of transitioned through the call and had these wonderful kinds of, I want to say, like the roller coaster would go up, it would go down a little bit and back up, and then by the end I don't even remember what we were laughing about, but I remember you said to me, you're like, I'm so glad to see you laughing and that you can, because I can hold a lot. Like I do have this spectrum of emotions, And so, and I think the other thing we talked about too was not taking everything so seriously and the importance of that, because life is literally changing every single second of our day. We think we were the same person we were 30 seconds ago. No, I'm different because of what I've shared and what's happening inside of me. And 30 more seconds later, I'm going to be a different person, right? Like it's just, it happens that quickly. Like, and that I would even say that fluidly. Not so fluidly sometimes, but certainly, in this moment that fluidly. So yeah, I would love to hear you just kind of, share a little bit more if you want.
First and foremost, I'm just so touched and I'm honored to be there for you as your friend. And, if you had cried through the whole call, that would have been okay too, right? Like whatever was there was going to be met. And yeah, it feels good to be able to be there for you in those moments. And I feel really let in and trusted when you're like, yeah, let's talk. It's a gift over here too, right? Just for those people who don't reach out thinking it's a burden. I'm like in myth busting mode here. Like sometimes the contribution helps someone else too. And I think that you are one of several people this week that have brought up, in a very short time impact around this. And I know, um, for me, when there have been, and I'm thinking of a particular musician from like the Seattle grunge era, who I related to as a lyricist, as a poet, as like a top 20 vocalist, someone that I would put in my top 20, and an empath. I think the part that kind of punched me in the heart personally in that situation, I'm not saying that this is at all the same for you or for others, was that he had such a tender heart, was such a tender human, a sensitive human, that when he had anxiety and depression, they just medicated him instead of what I consider, the medicine, which is being held in it, being allowed to move through it, being validated in it, right? And sadly, those medications created a suicidal tendency. So it's just like there was the loss of the human, there was the grief of our culture and how we handle shit like this. There was the absolute gut wrenching awareness that like this isn't changing anytime soon. And how many people are we going to drop? Because frankly, when it comes to mental health and suicide and crimes and all these things, I personally feel like as a community, we're dropping people. People don't just do this with a very small, I'm going to say percentage of people, like 1% of people that are really, really, really just, maybe less than 1%. Most people have been dropped by our society to such a degree. And then circling back to our convo, like don't feel like they can reach out. Right. So like may we all be a kind heart or a shoulder for the people around us. I think reaching out is really hard. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like why didn't somebody get therapy, or why didn't they do this? And it's like, listen, we don't know the hole that people feel like they're in.
Right.
So let's be as kind as we can to each other.
Yeah.
And let's, dare I say, love each other fiercely while we're here. Yeah. And then to your point, right, you're talking about the call and ups and downs. It's like, well, if, also don't you dare think you're not multifaceted and you're going to have all the things.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
The joy of twinkle lights and the grief of news like that, and the Like let's let our whole selves be met, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Multifaceted. Yeah. I just, I'm doing another retreat this weekend. We did it.
Mm.
We met earlier today.
Yeah.
And it's always so rich. And that's what came up in the meditation. And my meditation is that I am multifaceted. Like that's one of the truths that I know about myself.
Mhm.
And I can't say that I always can see that. Even though I know that innately about myself. But my meditation, I wrote, as I lay my burdens down, what can I see and feel more clearly? And that was one of the things that came up, and I'm like, oh my God, that's really true, you know? Um, yeah, so I'm so, uh moved and touched by those who are willing to share what's happening in their lives, even when the things are hard, like my friend's brother passing, my friend's mother
Mhm.
passing, and because not everyone does that. A
Yeah.
lot of people just kind of hold their cards close to their chest, and that's okay too. So, um, and like you said, let's just be kind and hold one another, because if we're not experiencing mental issues, we're experiencing issues of some kind.
100%.
Like we're human. That's just what happens to us because we're human. And if we can simply love
Mhm.
each other as human to human, and you don't even need to go any deeper than that. Just
Yeah.
love someone because they're human and accept them because they're human. You're having a pretty good day if you can do that,
Yeah.
in my
And
book.
just a reminder for all of us, it's really, really, really hard to be humaning all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So yeah, just that love and appreciation. It's putting me in touch with this commercial that was made like probably 10 years ago. If I find it, I'll send it to you. And the commercial is like people walking around the hospital, right? And they just look like the doctor, the nurse, the patient, whatever. But then there would be a little, like, I don't want to, like a little bubble that would say what's going on for that person. So it's like one person enters the elevator and there's other people, and it's like just got her cancer diagnosis, right? Or has a kid homesick, or and you're watching just these movements that look so pedestrian and normal happening in a hospital. But you're getting like someone what's on someone's heart. So while we don't always have access to that at the grocery store or at the, you know,
Mhm.
post office or wherever you're going at these, at these holiday times, like trust that something's going on. I have yet to meet in my 43 years of living anyone who's just like, meh, everything is just like peaches. So even privileged people, right, dealing with some heartache. Um, yeah, it feels important to me.
Yeah.
Feels important for me to remember that about me,
Yes.
because I am more easily able to remember that about other people.
Yeah.
So maybe if you're someone who forgets that you're also human,
Yeah.
to not redirect, but to also direct
Mhm. Mhm.
that compassion towards yourself.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think some of us givers have a hard time remembering that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with that for sure. Yeah. Mm,
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm. So I wanted to share something total pivot,
Okay.
um, because I got my ring from Peru and I just wanted to share it with you. 'Cause let
Oh.
me see if I can.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So it's
What?
hammered metal.
Oh my gosh.
And then for me, after my ceremony, the green was my heart, and that little white rhinestone is like soul, spirit.
Mhm.
And then in all the darkness, right? Like still being connected, like to me, it's like warrior strength
Oh, I love it.
with heart and soul.
I love it.
And yeah, it was commissioned by a Peruvian artist who hammered it out and like made it by hand and mailed it across the Atlantic.
Yes.
So it's having me feel really like, I don't know. Sometimes we talk about touchstones, right?
Yeah.
Somehow this is anchoring that warrior energy that's been a bit ephemeral
Mm,
to
mhm,
hold. It's like, it's in
mhm.
here. So I'm wondering if there's something like that for you that kind of pulls all your energy in to like a focal point.
Ah, let me think about that for a moment.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Um, so when my father died,
Mm.
um, my mom, we were, I think were we all there? Doesn't matter. But anyway, she asked if any of us wanted his wedding band. And I said, I do. And she's like, okay. So I don't wear it I used to wear it all the time.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, I do put it back on for specific reasons, just because I want to,
Hmm.
and that for me is absolutely a touchstone. Yeah,
Mm. Oh, that feels like you get his spirit.
I do. Yeah.
Mm, it's really
Yeah, it's
beautiful.
a really beautiful thing. And what a great question. Yeah, thanks for that memory. Yeah, yeah.
Is it like, I wonder, what is it? Is it the kinesthetic? Like, is it the visual of it that brings him back for you? Or is it the like, because
It's
he had that on his hand for so many decades,
it's
right?
that.
Like,
So it's the energy of it. And it's a wider band.
mhm.
So there's some real substance to it, like weightiness to it. And I love, because I feel, how can I say this? I feel like because of the weightiness, it's grounding in a sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Totally. And was he grounding?
Yes, very sorry. Yes, very much so. There
Yeah.
were, yeah, and it was, and I think that's one of the reasons that he and my mother had the relationship that they had, because he was so good for her in that way,
Mhm.
good for all of us. He was very
Mm.
practical, and yeah, I mean, there were times when I was in a crisis and I was emotional, and he was like, all right, what's going on? And just his voice, like, what's
Mm.
going on? I'm like, he really wants to hear me. Like, that's the message that I got by him just saying, what's going on? Like, all right, dad. Yeah.
Mm. Oh, what a gift.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
just sacred gift he offered.
He did.
Yeah. Thank you for naming that in some ways maybe balanced the partnership too.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I just want to say people have a fantasy that like, oh, well, both people are going to be like expressive and adventurous and loud and playful, and that can happen. But sometimes the compliments
Yes.
give us ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like I know him a little bit better through your share. So thank you.
You're
Feels
welcome.
good to know your father a little bit more because
You're
of my love for you. It just feels really good to have that connected
welcome.
uh, essence of what he was like.
Thanks. Thanks.
Hmm. Well, we're at that time, believe it
We
or
are
not.
we are at that time. I was gonna, do we want to do the and, or do we want to do,
I don't have them.
I will pull
If you
up.
have a chat pack, we can do that. Or if you have a question on your mind.
Um, okay, let's see. Oh, okay. If you had a time machine, would you go back in time, or would you go into the future? And and yeah, as much as you can describe that experience, what would that be?
Wow, goodness me. That's such a great question. It's so funny, my logistical brain goes, if I go back in time, I might mess something up, right? Like the time traveler conundrum. But if I wasn't worrying about that, I don't necessarily, there's something about knowing the future that doesn't call to me.
Uh-huh,
I like the surprise of it.
uh-huh.
I've grown comfortable with the uncomfortability of not knowing.
Yeah.
And I prefer it over like if you just knew what 10 years from now looks like. I feel like it takes the piss out of it, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and first thought, which I feel very geeky telling you, um, is probably, yeah, hanging out with Alan Watts. Yeah.
What?
As a philosopher, as a,
Oh.
I mean, I first thought like Abraham Lincoln. I was like, I don't want to deal with the Civil War. So
Mhm,
that I'd like to hang with him, but not necessarily the time.
mhm,
I would really, I like, I don't, some people are like, I want to see a civilization like under Cleopatra's time, or I want
mhm,
to,
mhm.
I feel like I can imagine those things. I want to have a real conversation with someone I think is meaty and
Mm,
has voltage or wattage,
mm.
like
Yeah.
that's what I would want to come back with. It's like the reverence of connecting with someone I can't have a conversation with,
Oh,
at least not without, proper mediumship or whatever.
yeah.
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 And
Um,
what about you? Would you be like frolicking through cobblestone paths on a horse-drawn carriage, or would you be like, hey, I want to check out the future and see what planet we're living in? Where do you go first?
so I don't go future. I'm like, am I interested? I don't know. I'm a little resistant to it, even though I don't have a choice, like we're gonna get there. Where I go is, so two things come up for me. And I am a medium, so I would love to meet my dad's mother. Um, I've heard a lot of fascinating, interesting stories about her. And in the Ferguson family, like my dad's sisters and whatnot, extended family, have told me that I remind them of her so much and that I look
Oh.
like her. Yeah. Yeah. So just knowing that, I'm like, oh, I would love to meet Vivian, you know.
Mhm.
And then the other one is, we lived in Panama. I think, we lived in Panama for 4 years, and life was so simple. It was so simple and very adventurous, because my father really wanted us to have this fun experience, fun, blissful kind of, and I would even
Mm.
say ignorant, because we had no idea the dangers that we had no idea. And I'm just like, God, to live that freely again. I mean, yeah, bring it, because I would love that, and of course it was late, between 68 and 72, so eons ago. And like, internet wasn't even, it just wasn't even in our, purview. Like, we couldn't have imagined it. And so, yeah, life was really
Mm.
very vivid, very simple, and innocent. uh yeah, I would go back to that heartbeat.
Wow. I feel like it connects me to like a wholesomeness.
It was very wholesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
sounds really sweet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, friend.
Thank you, friend. This has been, as always, a gift, delightful, full of information and
Yeah.
love, and wow. And
Yeah, it has me, I don't know, there's just more that now my mind is feeling into and like more to think about, but less think about, more to feel about.
Mm,
Um, so thank you. And thank you to anyone watching live or watching the replay. We hope, as always, that this serves you in some way, that it comforts you, that it inspires you, that it ruffles your feathers too. I mean, hey, right, like whatever it is, whatever you're feeling, uh, we'd love to hear from you. So anything, you know, yeah, anything lights up in you and you want to just post a comment, we read those. And yeah, we are just constantly rooting and cheering in your corner, that you receive the love you need and the nourishment and the blessings and all of it. Because Lord knows humaning is hard. And
it is.
yeah, lots of love.
Lots of love, everyone, and we'll see you next time.